Commander Thexlar stood on the bridge of the Sovereign's Eye, his 3 eyes focused on the main display screen. The patrol route along Sector 447 was usually boring. Nothing ever happened out here, at the edge of the quarantine zone. That was the point. Keep the primitives contained until they were ready for civilization. The sensor officer, a young Kryn named Velsha, made a clicking sound with her mandibles. It was the sound his species made when confused. "Commander, I have a contact. Single vessel, approaching from the direction of the human quarantine zone." Thexlar felt his secondary arms twitch with mild interest. Humans, the newest species in the database. Primitives who had barely learned to travel faster than light 20 years ago. They had 1 colony in their own star system and a few mining outposts. Nothing impressive. The Empire had been traveling the stars for 10,000 years. Humanity was still learning to walk. "Identification?" Thexlar asked. "None on file, Commander. It appears to be a human vessel. Requesting a scan." Thexlar waved one of his primary arms in approval. "Standard procedure. Scan the vessel, log it, send them back to their zone. Maybe file a report with High Command about quarantine violations. Simple work." Velsha initiated the scan. The Sovereign's Eye was equipped with the best sensors in the Imperial fleet. They could analyze a ship's composition, energy output, weapon systems, and crew complement from 50,000 kilometers away. The scan would take 30 seconds. Thexlar turned to examine the navigation charts. He was thinking about his upcoming leave, about seeing his clanmates on the homeworld, when Velsha made that clicking sound again. This time it was louder, more urgent. "Commander, the readings." "What about them?" Thexlar turned back to his officer. "Sir, this cannot be correct. The energy signature is reading at Dreadnought-class levels. The shielding? I'm seeing technology rated at Tier 4, possibly Tier 3. Power core output is—" She paused, checking her screens again. "Sir, the power core is generating more energy than our own ship." Thexlar's skin changed color slightly, a sign of confusion in his species. He moved to Velsha's station and looked at the data himself. The numbers made no sense. The human vessel was small, perhaps the size of an Imperial corvette, but it was producing energy readings comparable to a warship 50 times its size. "Run the scan again," Thexlar ordered. "The equipment must be malfunctioning." Velsha's fingers moved across her console. The scan initiated again. This time, everyone on the bridge watched the results come in. Thexlar felt his breathing slow as he read the data. It was identical to the first scan. Energy output, 847 terawatts. That was more than most Imperial cruisers. The shielding technology was reading as unknown, but the power signature suggested it was far more advanced than anything humans should possess. The hull composition didn't match anything in the Imperial database of known materials. "How is this possible?" Velsha whispered. Thexlar's military training took over. He had served the Empire for 40 years. He had seen many things, fought in 3 wars, and earned his command through skill and experience. But this was wrong. Humans were primitives. They had been catalogued as Class 7 civilization. They barely had weapons that could threaten Imperial scout vessels, let alone technology that could rival the Empire's finest warships. "Tactical, bring us to alert status yellow," Thexlar ordered. "Navigation, slow to sublight, and hold position. Communications, open a channel to the human vessel." The communications officer, a Velthian named Orax, worked his console. "Channel open, Commander. Unidentified human vessel. This is Commander Thexlar of the Imperial Border Patrol ship, Sovereign's Eye. You are approaching Imperial-controlled space. Identify yourself and state your purpose." There was a delay of several seconds. Then a voice came through the speakers. It was translated by the ship's computer into Galactic Standard. The voice was female, calm, and spoke with the strange accent of human languages. "Commander Thexlar, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Coalition ship Endeavor. We are a diplomatic courier vessel. We request permission to proceed to the nearest Imperial station to establish formal diplomatic relations between humanity and the Galactic Empire. Thexlar felt a wave of confusion wash over him. Diplomatic relations? Humans were under quarantine. They were not ready for contact with the wider galaxy. The Empire had strict protocols. Primitive species were observed from a distance, allowed to develop naturally, and only contacted when they reached certain technological and social milestones. Humans were centuries away from those milestones. Captain Shen, humanity is currently under protective quarantine as outlined in Imperial Protocol 447B. You are not authorized to leave your designated space. You are ordered to return to the Sol system immediately. Another pause. When Captain Chen spoke again, her voice remained calm and polite. Commander, we are aware of the Empire's quarantine protocols. However, we believe there has been a misunderstanding about humanity's current status. We have been monitoring Imperial activity in this region for 15 years. We are ready for diplomatic contact. 15 years. Thexlar felt his skin color shift again. Humans had been watching the Empire? Imperial survey drones were equipped with stealth technology. They should have been invisible to primitive sensors. Captain Chen, your readiness is not for you to determine. The Empire will initiate contact when humanity has achieved the necessary development levels. According to our projections, that will occur in approximately 5 to 8 centuries. Until then, you will remain in your designated space. This is not a negotiation. Velsha leaned closer to Thexlar and whispered, Commander, should we report this to High Command? These readings, if they're accurate. Thexlar raised a hand, silencing her. He wanted to understand what he was dealing with before involving his superiors. If this was a sensor malfunction or some kind of human trick, he didn't want to look foolish. The human captain's voice came through again, and this time there was something different in her tone. Commander Thexlar, with respect, by what authority does the Galactic Empire claim jurisdiction over sovereign human vessels traveling through unclaimed space? We are not in Imperial territory. We are in neutral space, and we have every right to be here. Thexlar felt anger rising in his chest. Primitives didn't question the Empire. They certainly didn't cite legal arguments about territorial rights. The Empire had maintained order in the galaxy for 10,000 years. Their authority was absolute, their power unmatched. Captain Shen, I am ordering you one final time. Return to human space immediately, or I will be forced to disable your vessel and impound it. You have 30 seconds to comply. He gestured to his tactical officer. Target their engines. Prepare a warning shot. The tactical officer hesitated for a moment, looking at the sensor readings, then nodded. Weapons armed, Commander. Thexlar watched the countdown. 30 seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds. The human ship didn't move. It just sat there in space, waiting. Fire. A plasma bolt launched from the Sovereign's eye. Bright blue energy streaking across the void toward the Endeavor. It was a precise shot, designed to disable the ship's engines without causing serious damage. Standard procedure for non-compliant vessels. The plasma bolt reached the human ship. Thexlar expected to see it strike the hull, to see systems overload and fail. Instead, the bolt hit something 300 meters from the Endeavor, and simply disappeared. There was a brief shimmer in space, like light bending through water, and then nothing. The energy was gone, absorbed by something invisible. Every officer on the bridge stared at their screens in silence. What just happened? Thexlar demanded. Before anyone could answer, Captain Shen's voice came through the speakers again. She sounded almost apologetic. Commander Thexlar, we really would prefer not to demonstrate why attacking us would be unwise. Please, let's talk about this peacefully. Commander Thexlar stared at the main screen where the human ship floated peacefully in space. His plasma bolt, powerful enough to cripple an Imperial corvette, had vanished like dust in the wind. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically at their stations, trying to understand what had just happened. "Analysis," Fexlar demanded, his voice tight with controlled tension. The tactical officer, a seasoned Kryn veteran named Daxim, looked up from his console. His skin had turned a pale shade of green, the color of deep concern. "Commander, the plasma bolt struck some kind of barrier approximately 300 meters from the target vessel. The energy was absorbed and redistributed into the surrounding space as photonic emissions. The dissipation was clean, controlled, and complete." "What kind of shielding technology does that?" Fexlar asked. "None that I know of, sir. Imperial shields deflect energy or absorb it into capacitors for redistribution. This was different. The energy just ceased to exist as a threat." Velsha called out from her station. "Commander, I'm receiving a data transmission from the human vessel. They're sending us telemetry data." "Display it." The main screen changed to show technical schematics and scientific formulas. Fexlar's translator implant worked to convert the human mathematical notation into something he could understand. What he saw made his 3 hearts beat faster. The humans were showing him exactly how their shielding worked. The data explained a system that used rotating gravitational lenses combined with energy phase modulation. The plasma bolt hadn't been stopped by a wall. It had been caught in a gravitational field that spun it, shifted its energy phase, and dispersed it harmlessly into space. The science was sound, elegant even, and completely outside anything in the Imperial Technical Database. "This is impossible," Daxine whispered, reading the same data. "The calculations alone require processing power beyond what primitives should have, and the energy requirements to maintain those gravitational fields. That explains the power core readings," Velsha added. "They need massive energy output to run this system continuously." Fexlar felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Fear. Not the fear of immediate danger, but the fear of the unknown. The fear of being outmatched. He had fought against the Zendari Confederacy in the border wars. He had faced pirates and raiders and hostile species. But he had always known what he was fighting. He had always understood the capabilities of his enemies. This was different. Humans were supposed to be primitives. They were supposed to be simple, limited, barely capable of leaving their own star systems. But the ship floating before him was anything but primitive. "Captain Chen," Fexlar said, opening the communication channel again. "How many ships like the Endeavor does humanity possess?" There was a pause before the human captain responded. When she did, her words sent ice through Fexlar's veins. "Commander, the Endeavor is a diplomatic courier. You haven't seen our warships." The bridge fell silent. Fexlar's mind raced. If this was a courier, a non-military vessel, then what were human warships capable of? He made a decision. "Communications, open a priority channel to Imperial High Command. Classification, emergency. Threat assessment, Tier 3. Orax's eyes widened. "Sir, Tier 3? That classification is reserved for species capable of challenging regional Imperial dominance." "I'm aware of the classification. Send it." While the message was being transmitted, Fexlar continued studying the human ship. He ordered continuous scans, hoping to find some weakness, some flaw in their technology. Instead, every scan revealed more mysteries. The hull composition was unlike anything in the database. It appeared to be a composite material, layered in ways that made no sense. It should have been too heavy to move efficiently, but the Endeavor held its position with minimal thruster activity, suggesting extremely efficient engines. No weapons were visible. But that meant nothing. The Empire had learned long ago that the most dangerous weapons were the ones you couldn't see until they fired. "Sir, I'm picking up additional energy fluctuations from the human vessel," Velsha reported. "They're building up power in their primary systems. Evasive maneuvers, shields to maximum." The Sovereign's eye began to move, rolling away from the Endeavor while raising its defensive shields. But the human ship didn't fire. Instead, it simply tracked their movement with perfect precision, rotating to keep its forward section pointed at the Imperial vessel. Captain Chen's voice came through again. "Commander Thexlar, we're not charging weapons, we're preparing to leave. However, before we go, I want you to understand something. Humanity doesn't want conflict with the Empire. We want dialogue, trade, and peaceful coexistence. But we will not be treated as primitives to be managed. We will not be caged in our own system like animals in a zoo." "You are not ready for galactic civilization," Thexlar replied, though his words sounded weak even to his own ears. "By whose measure?" Chen asked. "You scanned our ship twice, Commander. Both times you got the same readings. Both times you couldn't believe what you were seeing. That's not a sensor malfunction. That's reality. Humanity has advanced faster than your projections predicted. We're here. We're ready. And we're not going away." Thexlar wanted to argue, but the evidence was right in front of him. The human ship represented technology that rivaled the Empire's best designs. How had they done it? How had they advanced so quickly? "How?" he asked simply. "How did you achieve this level of technology in only 20 years? There was warmth in Captain Chen's voice when she answered, as if she appreciated the honest question. "Commander, do you know what happens when a species realizes they're not alone in the universe? When they discover that they're surrounded by powers far greater than themselves? They have two choices. They can hide and hope to be left alone, or they can rise to meet the challenge. You chose to rise. We chose to survive. When your survey drones passed through our system 15 years ago, we learned everything we could from their sensor sweeps. We learned that we were being watched. We learned that we were considered unimportant. We learned that the galaxy is full of species that have been traveling the stars since before human civilization began. And we made a decision. When we finally met the Empire, we would meet as equals, not as subjects waiting for permission to exist." "So you built warships?" Thexlar said quietly. "We built a future," Chen corrected. "The Endeavor and her sister ships are just the beginning. Every human colony, every asteroid mine, every resource in our system has been dedicated to one goal: making sure that when this day came, when we stood before the Empire, we would stand on our own feet." Thexlar's communication console chimed, a response from High Command. He read the message quickly. Fleet Admiral Vorath was being dispatched with a task force to assess the situation. He was ordered to maintain position and monitor the human vessel until reinforcements arrived. "You are to remain in this position until Imperial reinforcements arrive. A senior officer will handle negotiations." "How many ships is your admiral bringing, Commander?" The question caught him off guard. "That is classified information." 3 cruisers and a carrier, I would guess. Standard Imperial response to a potential threat. Overwhelming force to demonstrate power. Show the primitives that resistance is futile." There was no mockery in Chen's voice, just statement of fact. "You cannot know that," Thexlar said, but he felt unease growing. That was exactly the standard deployment. "Commander, we've been watching the Empire for 15 years. We know your protocols, your procedures, your tactics. We know how you think, and we've prepared accordingly." "You speak as if you expect conflict." "No," Chen said firmly. "We expect respect. There's a difference. We're prepared for conflict, but we're hoping for peace. The question is, what is the Empire prepared for?" Thexlar had no answer. He closed the channel and stood on his bridge, staring at the human ship. In his 40 years of service, he had never felt so uncertain. The Empire's strength had always been its overwhelming technological and military superiority. But what happened when you met a species that refused to be overwhelmed? What happened when primitives stopped being primitive? He thought about the message he had sent to High Command. Tier 3 threat. It seemed appropriate now. The Endeavor might be a single ship, but it represented something far more dangerous than weapons or shields. It represented a humanity that had looked at the vastness of the Empire and refused to be impressed. A humanity that had taken 20 years to accomplish what should have taken centuries. The Empire was about to learn a very difficult lesson, and Thexlar had a feeling he was standing at the beginning of something that would change the galaxy forever. Fleet Admiral Vorath stood in the command center of the Imperial carrier Absolute Authority, watching the tactical display with cold, analytical eyes. She was Zenthi, a species known for their strategic brilliance and ruthless efficiency. Her silver skin reflected the blue light from the displays, and her 4 arms moved with practiced precision as she reviewed the deployment of her task force. 3 cruisers, Morning Star, Relentless, and Sword of Justice, each one capable of reducing a planet's surface to slag. 1 carrier, her flagship, carrying 200 fighter craft and enough firepower to crack a moon. This was the Empire's standard response to upstart species who forgot their place. Status of the targeted vessel? Vorath asked. Her tactical coordinator, a Kryn officer named Shenzar, checked his displays. Still holding position, Admiral. The patrol ship Sovereign's Eye maintains observation distance. The human vessel has made no aggressive moves. Energy readings? Unchanged. Still showing impossible power outputs for a vessel of that size. Commander Thexlar's report has been verified by our own scans. Whatever that ship is, it's unlike anything we've encountered from a Class 7 civilization. Vorath had read Thexlar's report 3 times. Each time she found it harder to believe. But the sensor logs didn't lie. The humans had somehow developed technology that rivaled Imperial designs. It was unprecedented. It was also unacceptable. The Empire maintained order through superiority. When primitive species saw Imperial might, they understood their place in the galactic hierarchy. They waited patiently for the day they might be elevated to full civilization status. They didn't build warships and demand recognition. Open a channel to the human vessel, Vorath commanded. Channel open, Admiral. Human vessel Endeavor. This is Fleet Admiral Vorath of the Galactic Imperial Navy. You have violated Imperial quarantine protocols. You are hereby ordered to power down all systems and prepare to be boarded. Your vessel will be impounded and your crew will be detained pending a full investigation. Failure to comply will result in the use of force. You have 60 seconds to respond. The response came within 10 seconds. The same female voice that Thexlar had reported, calm and professional. Admiral Vorath, this is Captain Sarah Chen. We have not violated any Imperial laws as we are in neutral space. We respectfully decline your order. We are a diplomatic vessel operating under the authority of the United Earth Coalition. We request formal negotiations. Vorath's skin rippled with anger. Captain Chen, you misunderstand your situation. This is not a negotiation. This is a lawful order from a superior military force. Comply or face the consequences. Admiral, we understand our situation perfectly. The question is, do you understand yours? The audacity made Vorath's hands clench. She had fought in the Outer Rim wars. She had pacified rebellions and put down pirates. She had brought 17 species into compliance with Imperial law. No primitive had ever spoken to her this way. You have chosen unwisely, Captain. All ships, weapons free. Target the human vessel. Disable it. The 3 cruisers opened fire simultaneously. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and kinetic projectiles lanced through space toward the Endeavor. It was a devastating barrage, enough firepower to overwhelm any ship its size. Vorath watched the tactical display, expecting to see the human vessel's shields collapse and its systems fail. Instead, every single shot hit that invisible barrier, 300 meters from the hull, and dissipated harmlessly. The space around the Endeavor lit up with brief flashes of light as energy was absorbed and redistributed. The ship itself remained untouched. "Continue firing. Deploy fighters. I want kinetic weapons on that target." The carrier's launch bays opened, and fighters poured out like angry insects. 200 small craft, each one armed with missiles and mass drivers. They swarmed toward the Endeavor, firing as they came. Missiles streaked across the void. Kinetic rounds, solid metal moving at incredible speeds, hammered at the human ship's defenses. Nothing worked. The missiles detonated against the barrier and accomplished nothing. The kinetic rounds, which should have punched through any shield, simply slowed and stopped as if hitting an invisible wall, then drifted away, their momentum completely absorbed. "How is this possible?" Shenzar whispered. Vorath watched as her fighters circled the human vessel, continuing their assault. The Endeavor made no attempt to return fire. It simply sat there, absorbing everything the Imperial Task Force could throw at it. The shield didn't even seem to be straining. There were no fluctuations, no weak points. It was like trying to damage a mountain by throwing stones at it. "Admiral, the human ship is moving," the navigation officer called out. On the display, Vorath saw the Endeavor begin to maneuver. It wasn't fleeing. It was dancing. The ship moved through the swarm of fighters with impossible grace, dodging fire with precision that seemed almost casual. Every time a weapon was about to hit, the ship simply wasn't there anymore. The movements were too fast, too accurate. No pilot should have been able to react that quickly. "They're using computer-assisted navigation," Shenzar said, analyzing the flight patterns. "Predictive algorithms calculating firing solutions and adjusting course before weapons can acquire lock." "So are we," Vorath pointed out. "Yes, but theirs is better. Much better." Vorath's tactical mind raced through options. The shields were impenetrable. The ship was too fast to hit. Conventional weapons were useless. She needed a new approach. "Cease fire. All ships, pull back to defensive formation." The cruisers and fighters withdrew, forming a protective sphere around the carrier. Vorath studied the human vessel, thinking. Then the communication channel activated again. "Admiral, this is Captain Chen. Are we finished demonstrating things?" "What do you want?" Vorath asked bluntly. "I want what I've wanted from the beginning. Diplomatic recognition, a conversation, a chance to show you that humanity is ready to join the galactic community." "You've certainly shown us your military capabilities," Vorath admitted. "But technology alone does not make a species ready for civilization. There are cultural factors, social development, philosophical maturity, all of which we're prepared to discuss through proper diplomatic channels. But we can't do that if the Empire refuses to acknowledge our existence." Vorath considered her options. She could continue the attack, but it was clear that conventional weapons wouldn't work. She could call for reinforcements, bring in heavier ships with more advanced weaponry. But that would take weeks, and it would also be admitting that a single human vessel had stalemated an Imperial task force. The political implications made her feel ill. The Empire's image was built on invincibility. What would happen when other species learned that humans had held off 4 Imperial warships without firing a shot? "Captain Chen, how many ships like the Endeavor does humanity possess?" "Admiral, I'm not authorized to discuss the specifics of Earth's military capabilities. What I can tell you is that we have sufficient resources to defend our sovereignty. We're not asking to invade Imperial space or challenge your authority. We just want to be left alone to develop on our own terms." "And if the Empire refuses?" There was a long pause before Chen answered. When she did, her voice was sad, almost regretful. "Then we'll remain on our side of the border, and you'll remain on yours. But there will always be tension, always the possibility of misunderstanding and conflict." Is that really what the Empire wants? An unknown, potentially hostile force on its borders, growing stronger every year? Before Vorath could respond, her sensor officer called out, "Admiral, Multiple contacts entering the system. 7 ships, emerging from FTL at the edge of scanner range. Vorath felt her blood turn cold. Identification? They're broadcasting as human vessels. Classification, destroyers. Admiral, their energy signatures, show me. The tactical display updated with the new contacts. 7 ships, each one larger than the Endeavor, each one broadcasting power signatures that made Vorath's heart skip beats. If the courier ship had been impressive, these vessels were terrifying. The readings suggested that each one could potentially engage an Imperial cruiser in single combat and have a reasonable chance of winning. Captain Chen's voice came through again. Admiral, I've just received orders from Earth Command. I'm being withdrawn. These officers will handle negotiations from here. But PR, a new voice joined the channel. Male, older, with a tone of absolute confidence. Fleet Admiral Vorath, this is Commander Marcus Zoe of the United Earth Coalition ship Indomitable. On behalf of humanity, I'm requesting that your task force stand down and prepare for diplomatic discussions. Vorath looked at her displays. Her 4 ships against 7 human destroyers and the courier vessel. The tactical computer was running probability scenarios. The results were not encouraging. At best, the battle would be catastrophic for both sides. At worst, her task force would be destroyed. She had never retreated in her life, never backed down from a fight. But she had also never been foolish enough to throw away ships and lives in an unwinnable battle. This wasn't about pride, it was about duty. Her duty was to serve the Empire, and that meant making the hard choices. Commander Zhou, the Empire agrees to diplomatic discussions. However, this matter will need to be taken to the Galactic Council. Are you prepared to present humanity's case before the assembled species? We are. Then I will arrange it. But understand this, Commander. Technology impresses me, but it doesn't convince me that your species is ready for the responsibilities of galactic citizenship. Admiral, we're not asking for your approval. We're asking for recognition of reality. Humanity exists. We're here, and we're not going away. The only question is whether we move forward as potential allies or as strangers who don't trust each other. Vorath closed her eyes briefly, feeling the weight of the moment. This conversation would be studied for generations. Her decisions here would shape the Empire's relationship with humanity for centuries to come. I will transmit the coordinates for the Council chambers. Humanity will have its chance to speak. Thank you, Admiral. The channel closed. Vorath turned to her crew. All ships, set course for Imperial core space. We have much to report to the Emperor. As her task force began to withdraw, Vorath took one last look at the human vessels on her display. 8 ships had just changed the course of galactic history. She wondered what the Council would say. She wondered what humanity would do next. Most of all, she wondered how many more surprises the humans had waiting. The Galactic Council chambers were built to inspire awe. Located on the neutral world of Concordia Prime, the massive structure rose from the planet's surface like a monument to civilization itself. Inside, the main assembly hall could hold representatives from all 847 member species of the Empire. Today, every seat was filled. Ambassador Elena Volkov stood in the preparation chamber, adjusting her formal suit one final time. She was 53 years old, a veteran diplomat who had spent most of her career in Earth's United Nations before being selected for this assignment. She had prepared for this moment for 2 years. Everything humanity had worked for would be decided in the next few hours. Her assistant, a young man named David Park, handed her a datapad. Final briefing notes. Ambassador, the Council has been in session for 3 hours already. They're debating whether to even allow us to speak. What's the split? About 60% in favor of hearing us out, 40% wanting to reject our petition outright. The Kryn delegation is pushing hard for rejection. They're embarrassed about the incident with Admiral Vorath. Elena nodded. She had expected that. The Empire didn't like being surprised, and humanity's reveal had been nothing if not surprising. And our support? The Velthian Alliance is sympathetic. They remember what it was like being new to the galactic stage. The Zenthi are neutral, waiting to see which way the wind blows. The Andromedans are curious about our technology. The rest are watching and waiting. A chime sounded. The council was ready for them. Elena took a deep breath and walked through the massive doors into the assembly hall. The sight nearly stopped her in her tracks. Representatives from hundreds of species sat in curved rows that rose up like a great amphitheater. Some were humanoid. Others were so alien that Elena's brain struggled to process their forms. There were beings made of crystalline structures, creatures that floated in containment fields, and things that defied easy description. At the center of it all was the speaker's platform, a raised circle where petitioners stood to address the council. Elena walked to it, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. As she took her position, the murmuring of hundreds of voices fell silent. The council speaker, an ancient Kryn named Thexlon, activated his translation device. His voice, converted to dozens of languages simultaneously, filled the chamber. We are here to consider the petition of the species known as humanity. They seek full recognition as a sovereign civilization and request a seat on the Galactic Council. Ambassador Elena Volkov of Earth will present their case. Elena activated her own translator and began. Honored representatives, I stand before you not to ask for charity or special treatment. I come to present facts. 15 years ago, Imperial survey drones entered our star system. We detected them. We studied them, and we learned that we were not alone in the universe. She paused, looking around the chamber. Every eye, of every color and shape imaginable, was focused on her. We also learned that we were considered primitives, species worthy of observation, but not worthy of contact. The Empire decided that we would remain in quarantine for centuries, until you deemed us ready. But we made a different decision. We decided that our readiness would not be determined by others. It would be determined by us. A Kryn representative stood. You speak as if the Empire's judgment was wrong. The quarantine protocols exist to protect primitive species from being overwhelmed by advanced civilization. They are for your benefit. Are they? Elena asked. Or are they to keep us contained until we're no longer a potential threat? Until we've been studied so thoroughly that you understand everything about us? Until contact happens on your terms, not ours? The chamber erupted in discussion. The speaker called for order. But Elena could see that her words had struck a nerve. Many species in this chamber had gone through the same quarantine process. How many of them had felt the same way? A Velthian representative, her voice carrying the melodic tones of her species, spoke next. Ambassador Volkov, your technology is impressive, but the Galactic Council considers many factors beyond military capability. What of your social development, your cultural maturity, your ability to coexist peacefully with other species? We know our history. We know that humanity has been violent, divided, and often foolish. We've fought wars among ourselves. We've destroyed parts of our own planet through carelessness. We're not perfect. But I would ask the Council, which species here is? Which of you arrived at the galactic stage with a completely peaceful history? She let the question hang in the air. What we can offer is this. Humanity has learned from its mistakes. When we discovered we weren't alone, we didn't fragment into competing factions fighting for alien favor. We united. Every nation, every culture, every political system on Earth came together with one goal. To ensure that when we met you, we met as one species with one voice. A voice backed by weapons, a Zenthi representative noted coldly. Yes, Elena admitted, because we learned another lesson from our history. Peace is not achieved by being helpless. Peace is achieved by being strong enough that others must respect you, while being wise enough not to abuse that strength. We built ships not to conquer, but to ensure we couldn't be conquered. The speaker leaned forward. Your ships held off an Imperial task force. Some on this council view that as a threat. Then they misunderstand our intentions, Elena said firmly. We demonstrated our capabilities to Admiral Vorath for one reason only: to prove that we deserve to be taken seriously. If we had wanted conflict, we would have fired on her ships. We didn't. We absorbed their attacks and waited for them to be willing to talk. An Andromedan representative, its form shifting like liquid metal, spoke in harmonics that the translator rendered as, "You claim to want peace, yet you prepare for war. You claim to want dialogue, yet you arrived with warships. These contradictions trouble us. Wise beings prepare for the worst, while hoping for the best. We brought warships because we knew the Empire might respond with force. We were right. But we also brought diplomats because we hoped for conversation. We were right about that too. The contradiction you see is actually balance. The ability to defend ourselves, coupled with the desire not to need to." She activated her datapad, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. Images of Earth, of human cities, of the asteroid mining operations, and the shipyards in the outer solar system. "This is what we've built in 15 years. Not just weapons, but infrastructure. We've colonized Mars. We've established mining operations throughout our system. We've built space stations that house millions of people. We've done, in a decade and a half, what the Empire projected would take us 5 centuries. How?" The question came from multiple representatives at once. "Because we had to," Elena answered simply. "When you've spent your entire history as the only intelligent species you know of, suddenly discovering you're not alone changes everything. It focuses the mind wonderfully. Every resource, every brilliant mind, every ounce of human determination went into preparing for this day. Not because we wanted to fight you, but because we refused to be helpless before you." The chamber fell silent again. Elena could feel the weight of judgment from hundreds of species. This was the moment. Everything depended on what she said next. "I know what some of you are thinking. Humanity is dangerous. They advance too quickly. They're unpredictable. They might upset the galactic order that has stood for 10,000 years. And you know what? You're right to think those things. We are dangerous. Any species capable of what we've accomplished must be treated as dangerous. We are unpredictable because we don't follow the patterns you've seen before. And yes, we might change things." She paused, making eye contact with as many representatives as she could. "But change isn't always bad. The Empire has been stable for 10,000 years. That's an incredible achievement. But stability can also mean stagnation. When was the last time a new idea was proposed in this chamber? When was the last time someone challenged the way things have always been done?" "You propose to lecture us on governance?" a Kryn elder asked, his voice dripping with disdain. "No," Elena said. "I propose to offer you a choice. You can reject humanity's petition. You can try to keep us in our corner of space, isolated and contained. But we won't stop growing. We won't stop advancing. And eventually, we'll be too big to ignore. At that point, first contact will happen anyway, but it will happen with suspicion and mistrust on both sides. Or you can accept us now. Welcome us as equals. Let us prove through our actions that we can be valuable members of the galactic community. Give us a chance to contribute, to learn, to grow alongside you, instead of in spite of you." The Speaker of the Council called for a recess. The representatives would need time to discuss among themselves, to consult with their governments. Elena was escorted to a waiting chamber where David met her with water and congratulations. "You did it, Ambassador. You gave them everything we had." "Now we wait," Elena said, her hands shaking slightly as the adrenaline began to fade. "Now we see if it was enough." They didn't have to wait long. 2 hours later, the council reconvened. Elena returned to the speaker's platform, her heart pounding. Fexlon stood, his ancient form seeming to carry the weight of millennia. Ambassador Volkov, the council has deliberated. The vote was not unanimous. There were many who argued for rejection, for maintaining the quarantine, for waiting until humanity had proven itself over centuries rather than years. Elena felt her heart sink, but then the speaker continued. However, the majority recognizes that humanity has already proven itself, not through violence or threats, but through achievement. You have demonstrated technological capability, social unity, and most importantly, the wisdom to seek peace when you possess the power to wage war. Therefore, by a vote of 512 to 335, with abstentions, the Galactic Council accepts humanity's petition. The chamber erupted in sound. Some species cheered, others protested. Elena felt tears forming in her eyes as the magnitude of the moment hit her. Humanity is hereby recognized as a sovereign civilization. You will be granted full diplomatic status and a provisional seat on the Galactic Council, to be made permanent after a trial period of 10 standard years. Welcome, humanity, to the galactic community. Elena bowed deeply, unable to speak through the emotion. When she finally found her voice, she simply said, "Thank you. Humanity will not disappoint you." As she left the chamber, surrounded by well-wishers and curious representatives eager to learn more about Earth, Elena allowed herself a small smile. They had done it. Against all odds, against the weight of 10,000 years of imperial tradition, humanity had claimed its place among the stars. Not through conquest, not through subjugation, but through determination, ingenuity, and the simple refusal to accept that someone else would decide their fate. It was the most human thing they could have done. 3 weeks after the council vote, Ambassador Elena Volkov stood in a diplomatic reception hall on Concordia Prime, surrounded by representatives from dozens of species. The formal welcome ceremony had concluded an hour ago. Now came the informal part, where real conversations happened over drinks and light refreshments. A Velthian diplomat named Selvara approached, her silver skin shimmering in the soft light. "Ambassador Volkov, congratulations again on your acceptance. I must admit, I've been curious about something." "Please, ask anything," Elena said warmly. "Your technological advancement, 15 years, is remarkably fast. Too fast, some say. There are rumors that you must have had help. Stolen technology, perhaps, or secret contact with another species." Selvara's tone was gentle, but the question was serious. Elena smiled. She had been expecting this. "No stolen technology. No secret allies. We developed it ourselves, using the knowledge and ingenuity of our own people. Just human determination and a very specific motivation." Before she could elaborate, a Kryn diplomat joined them. It was Thexlon, the council speaker himself. His presence silenced nearby conversations. "I too am interested in this answer. How did you do it, Ambassador? My species took 600 years to go from first spaceflight to FTL travel. Humanity did it in less than a century. Then you added another leap in just 15 years. Explain this to me." Elena gestured to a quieter corner of the room. Several other representatives followed, forming a small group around her. She recognized Admiral Vorath among them, the Zenti commander who had first encountered human warships. Their eyes met, and Vorath gave a slight nod of respect. "The truth," Elena began, "is simpler than you think, and more uncomfortable. May I speak candidly?" "Please do," Thexlon said. "Humanity advanced so quickly because we were terrified. When we detected your survey drones 15 years ago, we realized that we were being watched, studied, cataloged like animals in a nature preserve. And we realized that out here in the galaxy, we were nothing, weak, primitive, at the mercy of powers we couldn't hope to understand, let alone challenge. She paused, organizing her thoughts. You have to understand what that felt like. For all of human history, we were alone. We thought we were unique in the universe. Then suddenly, we learned we weren't just not unique, we were insignificant. There were species out here that had been traveling the stars for thousands of years before the first human civilization was built. The Empire had more ships than we had cities. A Zenti representative spoke up. That should have made you cautious, careful. Instead, you built warships. Yes, Elena agreed. Because being careful would have meant accepting our place as primitives, waiting centuries for the Empire to decide we were ready. Living under the shadow of powers we had no ability to resist or negotiate with. That wasn't acceptable to us. Why not? Silvara asked. The quarantine system has worked well for countless species. It allows for gradual integration, prevents culture shock, ensures stability. Elena met her gaze. Because it takes away our choice. The Empire decided when we would be contacted, how we would develop, what timeline we would follow. You made decisions about our future without ever asking us what we wanted. And that, more than anything else, is what drove us. She could see understanding dawning on some faces, confusion on others. Let me ask you all something. How many of your species chose when to join the galactic community? How many had that choice made for them? The silence was telling. That's what I thought, Elena continued. The Empire's system is designed for control, not cooperation. It ensures that by the time a species reaches the galactic stage, they're already conditioned to accept imperial authority. They've spent centuries being watched and managed. Contact becomes a gift from the Empire, something to be grateful for rather than a right to be claimed. Thexlon's skin changed color, a sign of agitation. You make it sound sinister. The quarantine protocols protect primitive species. From what? Elena challenged. From the shock of learning they're not alone? We handled that shock just fine. From being overwhelmed by advanced technology? We studied your tech and built our own. From cultural contamination? Our culture is stronger than you think. No, the quarantine protects the Empire. It ensures that new species arrive already knowing their place in the hierarchy. You speak of things you don't understand, an Andromedan representative said, its form rippling with what might have been anger. The Empire has maintained peace for 10,000 years. Peace, Elena repeated, or just the absence of anyone strong enough to challenge you. There's a difference between peace and dominance. Admiral Voraf stepped forward. Ambassador, I fought your ships. I respect your capabilities. But do you truly believe humanity could challenge the Empire? We have millions of vessels, thousands of worlds, resources beyond counting. No, Elena said honestly. In a total war, the Empire would crush us. We're not delusional. But that's not the point. The point is that we made ourselves strong enough that war would be costly. Costly enough that you'd prefer to negotiate. Costly enough that we'd have a voice at the table rather than waiting outside hoping to be invited in. She looked around at the assembled representatives. I know what you're all thinking. Humanity is arrogant, aggressive. We don't respect the natural order. And you're right. Because from our perspective, the natural order is just another word for the way things have always been, because no one was strong enough to change them. Dangerous thinking, Thexlon muttered. Perhaps, Elena agreed, but it's also honest thinking. Let me tell you what happened after we detected your drones. Every nation on Earth held emergency meetings. Every leader, every scientist, every military commander was brought together. We had to decide. Do we hide and hope you leave us alone? Do we announce ourselves and ask nicely for contact? Or do we prepare for the day when hiding would no longer be possible? We chose to prepare. We unified every government under a single coalition. We pooled every resource. We took every brilliant mind we had and put them to work on one question. How do we survive in a galaxy full of powers that make us look like children playing with toys. David Park, who had been standing quietly nearby, handed Elena a datapad. She pulled up images and projected them into the air above the group. They showed Earth's transformation over 15 years. Cities expanding, orbital installations growing, the asteroid belt being systematically mined, Mars being colonized. This is what 15 years of focused human effort looks like. Every piece of metal from our asteroid belt, every scientist working 20-hour days, every engineer pushing the limits of what we thought was possible. We didn't advance because we're smarter than you. We advanced because we were desperate. And angry, Admiral Vorath added quietly. I could hear it in Captain Chen's voice, in Commander Zhou's words. You're angry at us. Elena considered denying it, then decided honesty was more important. Yes, we're angry. Not at individuals like you, Admiral, but at the system, at the assumption that you have the right to decide our fate, at the idea that we should be grateful just for being acknowledged. Humanity has spent its entire history fighting for the right to self-determination. We've fought tyrants and dictators and empires. Why would we suddenly accept being told to sit in the corner and wait our turn? Silvara spoke softly. You could have announced yourselves, asked to join the galactic community through proper channels. And been told no, Elena countered. You know it, I know it. The Empire would have said we weren't ready, put us back in quarantine, and continued watching us for centuries. So we made ourselves ready. We built ships that couldn't be ignored. We developed technology that demanded respect. And then we showed up and said, ready or not, here we are. You forced our hand, Fexlon said, and there was grudging respect in his voice now. Yes, because asking nicely has never worked for humanity. Throughout our history, rights have been claimed, not granted. Respect has been earned, not given. We applied the same principle to galactic civilization. A younger Kryn diplomat, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. What if other species follow your example? What if every quarantine civilization decides to build warships and demand recognition? Elena smiled. Then the Empire will have to change. It will have to start treating new species as potential equals rather than future subjects. Is that really such a terrible outcome? The group fell silent, considering her words. Finally, Admiral Vorath spoke again. You've made your point, Ambassador. Humanity is here, and you're not leaving. But I have one question. What happens now? You've won your recognition. What are your intentions toward the Empire? Simple, Elena said. We want to trade, learn, grow. We want to send our scientists to study with yours. We want to establish embassies and cultural exchanges. We want to be partners in maintaining galactic peace. We don't want to conquer anyone. We don't want to overthrow the Empire. We just want to exist as a free sovereign species with the right to make our own choices. And if the Empire tries to limit those choices, asked the Andromedan, then we'll have a problem, Elena said frankly. But I'm hoping it won't come to that. I'm hoping that by proving ourselves, by showing that we can be valuable allies rather than subjects, we can build a better relationship. One based on mutual respect, rather than imposed hierarchy. Fexlon studied her for a long moment. You are either very brave or very foolish, Ambassador Volkov. Probably both, Elena admitted with a slight smile. But I'm also very human, and that means I refuse to accept that our destiny should be determined by anyone but us. The council speaker nodded slowly. The vote was close, you know. Many representatives feared exactly what you've described. A species that doesn't respect traditional authority. That challenges established order. That might inspire others to do the same. I know. And yet, I voted for your acceptance. Do you know why? No. Because in 10,000 years, the Empire has grown comfortable, stable, perhaps too stable. We've become predictable. We've stopped being challenged. And when you stop being challenged, you stop growing. Humanity is a challenge. Perhaps that's exactly what we need. Elena felt a wave of emotion. Thank you, Speaker Thexlon. We won't disappoint you. See that you don't. Because the galaxy will be watching. Every species in quarantine will be watching. Every civilization will be judging whether humanity's approach was brave or merely reckless. You've set an example. Make sure it's a good one. As the gathering began to disperse, Elena found herself standing next to Admiral Vorath. The Senthi commander looked at her with an expression that might have been a smile. I underestimated you, Vorath said. I thought the Endeavor was your greatest achievement. But I was wrong. Your greatest achievement was making us question ourselves. That was never our goal, Elena replied. We just wanted to survive. Perhaps, but you did more than survive. You thrived. And in doing so, you reminded us that the galaxy is bigger than any empire, older than any civilization, and full of species who will surprise us if we give them the chance. Admiral Vorath extended one of her 4 hands. Elena shook it, the gesture of peace recognized across countless species. As Elena walked back to her quarters that night, exhausted but satisfied, she allowed herself to think about what came next. The real work of integration, of proving that humanity deserved its place among the stars. It would take decades, maybe centuries, but they had time now. They had a voice. They had claimed their future. And they had done it their way.